Allie Greer is the Director of Content and Community at Scoopit, a San Francisco-based content marketing platform that helps anyone from SMBs to enterprise manage and execute impacting content marketing programs. There, she leads the development and implementation of content strategy with the goals of lead generation and brand building, as well as building a multi-tiered community management system. For musings on the internet, sports, and eye-roll-worthy puns, follow Allie Greer on Twitter. So I'm really excited to bring Allie Greer from San Francisco up to Walnut Creek to have us speak for you. So here's Allie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Greer. Like Allison said, I am the Director of Community and Content at a company called Scoopit. Who's heard of Scoopit here? Awesome. And actually, what Allison was referring to about our exciting things is that we have a really, really awesome new product launching next week, and it's basically, you guys are exactly our target audience, so I'm super excited about it. It's a content marketing tool that will allow you to manage and streamline all of your content marketing, activities, and to kind of manage your content strategy through website content as well as social media, and we also have the discovery aspect as well. So it's kind of taking all the different apps that you may be using for content strategy and putting it all into one place for a seamless process. And we have team, ways to work together with your team, and you can have different roles and approve things and things like that. So it's super exciting, and I have a discount code for you guys for 15% off. It's much less expensive than the majority of the big content marketing platforms. So I'm super excited, and I hope you guys try it out and keep your eyes out for next week. So that's my little pitch. So let's talk about lean content. So who here would say that you consider yourself to do content marketing? Cool. So I think that the people who haven't raised their hands, you probably are doing content marketing, but you're just don't realize it. And another thing about content marketing is that content is just content, so pretty much all marketing is content marketing. Tricked ya. So what is lean? Is anyone familiar with the lean startup ideologies or anything like that? For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a pretty widespread movement over the last couple of years, made popular by Eric Rice, or Reese, however you say it. The idea is to build a company or a product with as little resources and money as possible and have as high of a returns as possible. So it's a pretty big, school of thought these days in business. And what we decided to do was think about this in relation to marketing. So like I kind of explained, this is the lean startup cycle. So what it does is you start out with ideas, and then instead of spending so much time thinking of different ideas, you just start building. And when you start building, you come out with a product, or you come out with a version of a product, or you come out with a version of 3 different products. And then after that, you start to measure. So you measure, how people are receiving them, how they're selling, how they're performing. What you want to get out of them, you start measuring that. And then what you do is you gather all of this data from that measurement, and then you learn from it. So it's kind of this cycle, and as you collect data and learn from it, you kind of go back to the idea phase and keep on iterating your product until it's optimized to kind of use the smallest amount of resources but still bring the highest amount of return. And it's an ongoing cycle, so it's constantly being iterated and analyzed and gone through. So these are kind of different types of marketing. I have some fun little ads in here, but so there's email marketing, there's digital advertising, there's real-time marketing. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this famous Oreo tweet from the Super Bowl. There's social media marketing, there's video marketing. But like we kind of said before, and we were kind of joking, but it's also true, the basis of all these types of marketing is content. Has anyone heard of this term, content shock? Okay, so I didn't make it up, it's a real thing. So there's a blogger, and his name is Mark Schaefer. Has anyone heard of him? He's a social media blogger. And he wrote a post last year that went totally viral and made people totally freak out. And what he basically said was, in this day and age, there are so many people who can become a publisher. If I want to start a blog tomorrow, I can. All I have to do is go to wordpress.com or wordpress.org and start one. So in this time, with all of these people publishing, who's actually consuming? Imagine if everyone in this room started their own blog. Nobody would read anyone else's blog because you're all too focused on making your own blogs. I didn't mean to make that personal to you guys, but hypothetically, if you were all blogging, nobody would be paying attention to anybody else because everybody's doing it on their own. So the idea between content shock is Mark Schaefer says we're going to reach a point where so many people can be creating content, online, that nobody's actually even going to consume content, and there's going to be no reason to even be publishing it. But what's going to happen is that the people with a ton of money are going to be the ones who rise above. Because those are the people, like Red Bull, who can send a man into space and have him jump to the Earth in a giant content marketing stunt. And an interesting fact is that somebody actually did a higher jump than that guy, but nobody knew about it because there was no marketing around it. And he was actually an employee of Google, and he decided to not have Google sponsor it because he didn't want it to be a marketing ploy. So, not all of us have that kind of money. Like, Scoop It is a startup. I'm assuming you guys are on pretty tight budgets. So we need to figure out, how do we survive in, once this content shock happens where there's so much content, how do we survive and how do we rise above the noise? So these are a couple of websites that you've probably heard of, Upworthy, Huffington Post. Can anyone think of something that all of these sites have in common? Okay, I'll just tell you. They all curate.
I would say that a lot of it is sensationalized, and I can't believe that's actually true, real journalism.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of them, and I feel like, that's just another tactic to kind of get people's attention. And if you have to say, you'll never believe this crazy thing, that's what you literally need to do in order to get people to click on your post. So it's further evidence. What I was going for was that all of these websites are curating content. So they are creating content, and as you'll see, I have this crazy theory that maybe one day all of the media will just turn into one giant website, and it's probably going to be BuzzFeed. But all of, what they start doing is Huffington Post will post articles from BuzzFeed, repost them on HuffPost, or Business Insider will repost an article from some other website. So that's kind of, you're seeing these big publications already catch on to this trend, and what they're doing is, instead of trying to fight it, they're just kind of accepting it and embracing it as a part of their own strategy. So if they're the ones who, they might not be creating all of it, but they're the ones who are surely sharing it, so they're the ones who people still keep coming back to. So this type of curation is kind of what we want to apply to ourselves as small businesses, because we want to be the one where everybody goes to read all the content, no matter where it came from. You're the one who's sharing it, and you're the resource. So here's just a little stat we have. This is from a report that Scoop It published last year, or I guess a couple months ago. 75% of both B2B and B2C marketers struggle with finding the time for content marketing. It's the #1 pain point of content marketers. Nobody has time. Who has time to write a blog post every single day? Put your hand down. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's amazing. But the majority of marketers are not only doing content, they're doing a lot of other things. I, for example, do a bunch of things. I do support, I do content, I do community, and I don't have time to write enough content. And I think that I'm definitely not alone, especially in the small business phase when a lot of people don't have a big team or a lot of money and things like that. So what is the solution? The solution is lean content. We take the principles from the lean startup ideology and apply them to content marketing and content strategy. You might be asking, why would we do that? Because only great content makes an impact, and great content costs a lot of money and a lot of time. This is a chart that shows, on average, how much time and money it costs to create different types of content. So for a blog post, it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 man hours, depending who's writing it, And it could even take 1 to 3 days between drafting, editing, and and finalizing. So you have an infographic, for example. You could contract someone anywhere between $2,000 or $10,000 or even more dollars just to make an infographic, and the turnaround time could be like a month. So clearly, this is not sustainable, and it's not scalable, and it's not going to be the answer because you don't have this money and you don't have this time, because you need to be out there now. Because every single day, I don't know the exact number, but like 60 million blog posts are published or something like that, and like you do not have 5 seconds to be wasting not being one of those people. So, as we call lean content strategy for the rest of us, those who are not, Fortune 500, we're not Red Bull, we're not, what was the company that did CES last year that like totally bombed? Qualcomm, or who was that? I don't know. Anyway, we none of us have these types of budgets, but we still need to do it. So the rest of us need to figure out how to succeed with this content strategy. So we came up with a fun little acronym with lean. So the first step, and I'll go through each of these steps further in a minute, but the first step is leverage. The second step for E is experiment. The third step for A is automate, and this is creativity, and measure. So I actually work for a French company, and my boss originally wrote this slide, and he wrote measure and thought that would fly, but I took the liberty to change it, because when it doesn't fit into your acronym and you're the CEO of a company, you just change the spelling of words. So basically, I wanted to give you guys a little background about the lean content community. So we've actually been running a meetup series in San Francisco and New York City for the past 2 years. We've had representatives from all of these companies and more speak. We have a monthly meetup in San Francisco if anyone works or lives in the city. It's on meetup.com under lean content. And a lot of the stuff I'm about to say to you was both developed by myself and the CEO of Scoopit, Guillaume de Cugis, as well as the insights that we've taken from these presentations. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. So the first step that I talked about is leverage. There are so many things out there that already exist that you can be leveraging for your content strategy, for example. I explained this earlier. There is so much content out there. Instead of being scared of it, use it to your advantage. So a couple of the different things that you can leverage include existing audiences and communities. So here's an example. Yesterday, I wrote a blog post about community managers. I was a community manager. I know a lot of community managers, and yesterday was Community Manager Appreciation Day, which was a holiday made up by community managers. And so basically what I did was I wrote a blog post about how amazing community managers are, and instead of trying to get my audience into it, like instead of only focusing on my own audience, I thought about what communities already exist where community managers live. So there's, a tweet chat on Twitter, that's community manager hangout. And so I went there and I just added that hashtag to my tweet, because why start from zero when something already exists? And I think this is something that a lot of people overlook. I feel like a lot of marketers, myself included, feel the need to start from nothing and build an amazing thing and find glory at the top of the hill. But honestly, it's so much easier on yourself, and it's also more effective to branch into the communities that already exist. These people have built these communities for you, and they're serving them to you on a silver platter. So you need to do research, whatever industry you're in. Find similar companies and see what they're doing on social media, or find meetups with like-minded people. And all of a sudden, you have this whole audience that's already been built for you by other people, but they're interested in exactly what you do. So that's a huge time saver. Another thing you can leverage is your community. So Scoopit is a platform, so we naturally have a community. We have a user base, and then we have a community. So a community and a user base are two different things. But a user base is whoever uses Scoopit. Our community are people who are interested in interacting with us, people who are interested in interacting with each other, people who we've been in touch with, people who are power users of the platform, etc. I actually engage with my community on a daily basis. I come to them for example, as a part of our new launch, we gave a soft launch to our product ambassadors of the new analytics, and they loved it. They came back to me and said, Allie, you are never going to believe what I did with these analytics. Look at this screenshot. I just redid my whole thing. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, you need to write that as a blog post for me. And they're already doing it. I mean, they're telling their friends about it. If they're consultants, they're telling their clients about it. So if they're going to write an email to me and tell me how amazing they think it is, or even an issue or a thought or anything they have, they're already writing me an email. And that is amazing content that's coming directly from within the Scoop It community. Who knows our product better than our users? So leveraging your own community is super, super helpful as well. And then obviously the big one is other people's content. So this is where the curation part comes in. This is where, if you can't, well, I guess it's a different version of if you can't beat them, join them. But if you can't beat them, curate them. You want to become this resource. You want to be the place where people go to find all this information. And that it's already written for you. It's amazing. So the next part is experimenting. So I actually have a Post-it on my desk that says testing greater than sign overthinking, because I forget this every single day, like multiple times a day. There is absolutely no reason to sit at your desk and think, what should I title this blog post for 30 minutes? Send out 2 tweets with one has one headline and one has another headline. Whichever one gets a better reaction, there's your headline. People waste so much time trying to figure out what's going to work. Nobody knows what's going to work. So the more you try, the more you learn what does work. For example, Leo from Buffer, when he spoke, he talked about how they do this thing where they'll tweet every so often, just like a stat or something, or like a headline, but that also makes sense without an actual blog post. And they'll see how their audience reacts to it. And if they tweet something like a sentence or a tip or something that gets like 30 retweets or something, there's a blog post right there. And so now they know exactly what works, exactly how their audience is going to react to it, and all it took was less than 140 characters. So this next part is not a typo. It does say quantity over quality, which is actually an extremely unpopular order. But this is another thing that Leo from Buffer talked about. So when Buffer, are you guys familiar with Buffer? It's a social media tool. It's basically like a queue for your social media posts. So you preset times, and then you send your tweets into the queue, and they're sent out automatically throughout the day, whenever you choose. So Leo from Buffer, basically what he did was when they first started, they could not get anyone to write about them. They tried reaching out to reporters. They tried reaching out to bloggers. They were having a really hard time. They were based in Europe. They were not close to Silicon Valley. And so what they did was they just started writing about themselves. And I think Leo's point by saying quantity over quality doesn't mean make a lot of crappy content. It means keep on trying. Like, don't make every single post 100%, because that's okay. Like, you don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. So, write 2 80% posts instead of an 100% post, and then see what happens. And, that's a way to kind of get immediate feedback on what you're doing. And then you can take this data, like I explained in the lean startup cycle, you can take this data and use it to inform your decisions moving forward. So the next part is automate. And the thing with automation is that you really, really have to be careful about it. Automate what can be automated, but please do not automate things that should not be automated, like direct messages, for example, even though that's not related to content. Who's heard of Paperly? Okay, I'm not going to talk down on a semi-competitor, but I'm just going to explain what they do. So you give them keywords, and then they create this digest, basically, of curated content from around the internet, and then you can tweet it out to your followers and say, here's the best social media articles of the day. Well, that's completely automated. So the people who are tweeting those Paperlies, they might not even know what's going into their Paperly before they tweet it. They might just be thinking, hey, amazing content. And I know, I used to use Paperly as well, and it's great, and it's awesome for a lot of different purposes. But if you think about it, why would you want to be tweeting something that you don't know the content of? You might be tweeting a link to your competitor's article, or you might be tweeting a link to something that you don't resonate with or you don't approve of. So I would highly advise against automating publishing. That said, there are a lot of things you can automate. For example, content sourcing. So this is how you're finding the content that you're going to be curating and sharing and finding inspiration from. There's so many tools that people are using. There's Feedly, there's Prismatic, there was back in the day Google Reader. And there are a lot of places to go to find content. And something that I was kind of explaining earlier with Scoop It is that we actually have an automated content sourcing engine within our product. So you can give us keywords, RSS feeds, Twitter lists, whatever you so choose. And all of the content is sourced for you. If you can automate your content sourcing, you're saving yourselves 2 hours or an hour or however long. You're like surfing the internet, trying to like reading through your inbox, looking at all the different newsletters, trying to find good content to share. If you can automate this, you will save so much time. Another thing is cross-posting. So if you use Hootsuite, you know that you can post to a bunch of different networks at the same time. A lot of tools allow for this. Scoop It does as well. And one thing that just is really important about cross-posting is that it's super important to make sure that your content is fit for the channel. So automating cross-posting is also kind of difficult, and definitely you need to be aware of I was going to say hashtags on Facebook, but that's a thing now. Like @ on Facebook or, I don't know, something like plus whatever from Google Plus on Twitter. Like, it doesn't work. So if you can, there are so many tools out there that allow you to actually send a piece of content to all your different social networks, but allow you to edit the individual messages for each network. Not going to say that Scoop It has that, but it does. The last thing you can automate is obviously scheduling. So I'm sure a lot of you are already scheduling a lot of things. I talked about Buffer. We have some smart scheduling within Scoop It. There are millions and millions and millions of tools to schedule your content. There's no reason why you should be tweeting every single tweet by hand, because that's also just a huge waste of time. So now we have N measure without the N. And there are a whole bunch of things that you can measure with your content that are actually super important. But before I talk about measuring, there's always one thing I really need to say. Before you measure anything, you need to figure out what your goals are. And this is so often overlooked because you're so excited. You're like, yeah, I got this much traffic and this many retweets and this many conversions. But like, what does that all mean? And I think that the worst thing that can happen is that you have all this data, like you're just drowning in data, and you don't actually know what to do with it. So before you get to that point, figure out what you want to measure. There's no reason to measure things that you don't need to measure or that aren't going to convert into business goals for you. So I kind of have a 3-step process to define your goals that I kind of use, and I'll share with you. So the first step is to identify the goal of your business. Now, I do this with our co-founders. An example of a business goal is to break even in Q1, or to generate X amount of revenue for the company, or to raise a round of funding, or something like that. So now you can take your business goal and you can convert it into a marketing objective. So if my business goal is to break even and generate more revenue, then my marketing objective is to reach more people, get more people to sign up for demos, and make sure that people are aware of everything that we have to offer and make it easy for them to sign up. So with that, I can convert that even one step further into a content KPI. And for the same example, the content KPI could be lead generation. And this is real world example. This is exactly my main KPI for my content marketing efforts is leads generated, because Scoop It is in a place where we're really trying to make money. So I just took this huge goal and made it into a single number. And now I know that when I'm going into my performance reviews, or when I'm trying to figure out what to do next, or when I'm trying to figure out how I'm doing, I know exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm not drowning in this article had this many tweets, and this article had this many Facebook likes, and this article had that. I'm so focused. And the more focused you are on your objectives, the easier it'll be to analyze the data and get the results that you are looking for. So I'm sure you guys know how to measure things, but some examples of things that you could be measuring are traffic, leads generated, engagement, page views, even success, happiness, certain behaviors, clicking a button, filling out a form, downloading a white paper. So that is the measure. So this is kind of a grid just to kind of summarize it. So there are kind of 4 directions in which your content can go. So you can spend a ton of money and not have much of an impact, which is absolutely terrible, and that would be a costly fail. So that's here. You could also spend a ton of money, a la Red Bull, and have an amazing win, a la Red Bull, because we're still talking about it. Does everyone know what I'm talking about with Red Bull, by the way? No? Okay, so last year, Red Bull, basically what they did was they got this guy, Felix Baumgartner. He's like what is he? Does anyone know what he is? Do you know what he is? What is he? He's like a stunt guy. And what he did, they sent him up to space in this balloon, and he did a free fall jump it was like the highest jump from space ever done by a human without like any apparatus. So, I mean, he had like a parachute. So basically he was like skydiving from space. And he like broke the light barrier or speed barrier. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was sponsored by Red Bull, and like everyone was watching it, and it was huge. And this was like, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago. So this was like the biggest content marketing feat, like pretty much of our time. Sorry, I should have explained that earlier. So the other kind of way it can go is you can have, not spend that much money, focus on those cheap tricks, the automated retweets and the kind of like, I don't have time for this, just somebody else do it. And you're not going to have much of an impact with that because let's be real, you get out of it what you put into it. But where we want to be for lean content is here. We have a low cost and we have a high impact because we've leveraged all of the different things that I spoke about earlier. We've gone through and we've analyzed our performance. We've iterated based upon those analyses. And we have finally figured out how to include, curation, automation. Also, creation is still a part of that, just less. And we've kind of combined all these things into this amazing content strategy that doesn't really take that much time and doesn't really cost that much money. And yes, you're not gonna get the audience that Red Bull had, but at the same time, what's important is reaching the audience that you want to reach. So just to go through like some tactical stuff, that was like a very broad kind of overview. So these are just some of the tactics that I use for those different strategies. So I kind of divided them up by the leverage, experiment, automate, and measure. So a lot of different stuff that I do for communities, for the leverage stage of lean content, I already talked about, leveraging other communities. You throw yourself in there, you join, you speak up, you tweet with the hashtag, you go on a tweet chat, you go to an event, and like really, really get the most out of those communities. For the experimenting, a lot of ways that we experiment, I know like experimenting is kind of a very broad term, but A/B testing. So every time we want to, for example, if we have a white paper and I want to create an amazing abstract that's going to make people download it because people already are kind of upset that I'm making them give me their information in order to download the white paper, but obviously the whole reason why I created the white paper was to get their information. So, which seems like a lot of work for one email address. But you can have 2 landing pages instead of 1. And making landing pages is so easy. There are tools. There's Unbounce. There are, what's the other one? Lead Pages, I think, is the other one, leadpages.net. And you can create a landing page in like 20 minutes. And if I can do it, you guys definitely can do it because I am like, as you saw, like not technical at all. But create 2 different abstracts and see which one performs better. So that's a really cool example of kind of how to measuring as you're doing is kind of what it is. And then I guess I kind of got ahead of myself and talked about most of these things already, but the automating thing with Buffer, I would highly recommend Buffer. We actually have an integration with them, so it's probably our most used integration. Every single person I know pretty much uses Buffer, and it just makes your life so much easier. And like I said, if you're writing out every single tweet content-wise, you don't have to. So the last part of it, which is kind of my focus, my expertise, naturally coming from a company like Scoop It, is curation. So I kind of touched on curation at the beginning, and this is kind of, for us, the answer to content shock, the answer to standing out above the crowd and not contributing to the noise. There's a quote, I forgot who it was, but they said, the problem isn't information overload, it's filter failure. I think it was Clay Shirky. He's an educator at NYU, super, super smart. So it's not information overload, it's filter failure. You need to be that filter because, like I said before, there is so much information, and if you are the one giving it to your clients, then they're going to trust you and they're going to keep on coming back. So just to go through, I guess there's like a couple steps I have here that are, like I said, a little more tactical and kind of getting started on some ideas of how you can actually use curation for your content marketing. So the first part I touched on, it's content discovery. So let me ask you, how do you guys find content? Google Alerts. So what do you mean by Google? Do you just go to Google and like search stuff, or?
We'll do like a daily update. Like I'll look for co-working as as a search. We'll do a daily search on the top hits.
Gotcha. So Google Alerts. Anyone using like Prismatic or Feedly? Feedly? Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I like Feedly. Anyone else?
So maybe I'm old school, but I read my email, and my email takes me to a ton of different...
Yeah, that's actually not old school at all. And if it is, then I'm old school too, because I find a lot of my content from newsletters. In fact, have you guys heard of Unroll Me? It's like the best thing ever. It detects your email subscriptions, and then you can like unsubscribe to all the ones you hate, and all the ones you like, it puts it into one email. So every morning I have like this daily roll-up, they call it, of like all of the newsletters I'm subscribed to and want to read in one email. It's super, it's like literally changed my life. Unroll.me. Unroll. Unroll, like when you drop out of school. Is that a thing? Enroll. I don't know. Unroll Me? Yeah, so it this is like the most valuable thing I've said, and it's not even related to my presentation. Unroll Me I should just go work for them. It's unroll.me, and basically what it does is it'll just give you like, here's the Buffer newsletter, here's the Scoop It newsletter, here's the IB Times newsletter, and then you go through and you can. Anyway, so back to content discovery. Man, that sounds annoying, checking your email for content. So, you guys can even see, like, these things they're not streamlined, they're not scalable, they're just not practical. Like, there's no way that, relying on your email or searching in Google, like, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to find crap content. I find a lot of my content from social media, and I follow like 1,000 people on Twitter, and that's even too noisy for me. So the content discovery aspect, if it can be automated, is super, super helpful. Imagine every morning all you had to do was log on to one platform, and all of your saved Google searches were there, all of your Feedly RSS feeds, all of your any blog RSS feeds that you might be getting newsletters from, just put the RSS in there, and it's all in one place, and it's the same place that you're doing the rest of your marketing. So like you don't even have to leave. And I think the content discovery part is super important, because think about how much time you spend searching Google or reading your emails. Like you can save yourself an hour just from having this hand delivered to you. So the next step is website hosting. So content curation is awesome, but it needs a home. Your content needs a home to live, because otherwise it's just going to be floating in space forever, and that, I don't know about you guys, but that terrifies me. So how many of you would say that you curate content? Okay. And how many of you tweet? How many of you share links on Twitter? Okay, so if any of you that just raised your hand didn't raise your hand for curation, you should have. So people who share links on Twitter are curating content. They're finding articles that they love and they're sharing them with you, their audience. The only problem with that is that if I tweet a link to, the Huffington Post, which I don't usually do, but if I did do that, you would click it and you would be gone. You're on the Huffington Post now. You forgot where you came from. You already thought about 900 other things, and you're not thinking about me. You're not thinking about Scoop It. But if I'm sharing a link and I actually bring you back to myself, so say I share a link and it actually brings you back to my website, where not only can you read the link I just shared, but you can read like 50 other related links that I have hand-selected and added my own take on, and now you're on my website, right? And not only are you reading the content that I wanted to share with you, but you're reading the rest of my content. And then you might click on the menu and go to my About page. And then you might send me an email because you think that that piece I shared was really awesome. Or maybe I shared a piece of content about why you need to be on social media, and you're like, oh crap, I'm not on social media. Wow, what a coincidence. I'm on this website of this girl who does social media for businesses. Like, it's amazing how content works that way. Like, that's why you need to have content on your website, because you need to bring people to your website so they can realize that they need your services, and then they're already there. But the other great thing about this is that a lot of tools are able to connect with your website. So if you're on WordPress or Tumblr or whatever you're using, are most of you using WordPress for your websites? Yeah. So if you kind of just have a feed into your WordPress site, not only are you bringing people to you and keeping them there, but it also helps for SEO. So think about it like that. Think about that versus tweeting links. Like, so much added benefit with so not that much additional work. And because you're doing it from the same tool, hypothetically, if you're using Scoop It. And then the other thing about that is that it's amazing for SEO. So as you may or may not know, I know there's at least one SEO expert here, but as we have, Google doesn't care about keywords and all that kind of stuff anymore. It's quality. We want quality. We want dynamic. We want updated websites. We want updated content. We want quality content. And this is how you do it. If you're curating, you're always having new content on your website. So the next step is scheduling. I already went through that. What I do is I kind of I'll curate 4 articles in the morning, just go to my content discovery, add a little insight, add a little paragraph, and then just kind of schedule it out for throughout the day, and then I'm done. That's it. That's all I need to do, and then I can focus on everything else I need to do for the rest of the So I touched a little on analytics, and I kind of am super, super, super passionate about measuring and analytics and making sure that you know what you want to do before you start measuring, because I've been there and it's terrifying and you don't want to be there. But things like, for example, something that we do with analytics is this. We'll curate a post, say this amazing article from Jay Bear, social media expert from the Midwest, and we'll curate his article and we'll see how it performs. So if people really like it on our curated page, then maybe what we'll do the next week is expand on that and actually turn it into a full-on blog post. So when I curated that, I might have written a paragraph to go along with it. I agree with Jay, here are some key takeaways, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? But then, if people really respond to that, I can write another blog post a week later and say, hey, I already know that my audience is interested in this topic. I already know that they're into this article and they've read it and they can relate to it and they feel the need to share it. So why don't I take that a step further? There's this one blog post, you guys might have read it. It's this famous, viral blog post about this guy who wrote a blog post and then he got 10K views in a week or something, and then he wrote about how he did it. And his main strategy was curation. So what he did was he was writing about content promotion. So what he did was he Googled content promotion, checked out the top articles that came out, checked out the ones with the most shares, and then took that, curated it, summarized it, and then made it longer. Because he knew that people were already reacting to that. They already like this topic. They already like this article. So why wouldn't they like his article? And he ended up completely blowing up. He got picked up by Moz, and I think now he might even work there or something. But I mean, that's incredible. And he didn't even spend 1 second coming up with an original idea. That's amazing.
So can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
So he's attributing this curated content, but you said that he made it longer. So does that mean he modified that?
So what he's doing, so when you're curating, for example, on Scoop It, you have a publishing window and a link, right? So every post, you have a post here, and the title, you can change the title. That's a big part of curation. You can change the title, you can change the image and things like that. So you're linking in your title to the original content. And then what you're writing there is your insight. So for example, if we curate a post like that and it does really well, what I would do is I would make a blog post, take the insight that I already wrote, add to it, and then reference the original post in my new post. So I'm not, I'm not copying and pasting, I'm not stealing any content. I'm just being inspired by it. Because let's be honest, how many possible new ideas can we come up with for a blog post? I mean,
If you're good, I think you can come up with a lot of ideas.
chances are that there is something out there already that you can learn from. So if you have one idea and then you go ahead and Google it and see what already exists, there might be something that was like a terrible angle and has like 2 shares or something. And there might be another article with a completely different angle and it has 150 shares in like 3 days. So I'm not saying don't come up with your own original ideas, because obviously you should. But I'm saying that there's so much out there already that you can use for inspiration. Like, you can basically predict how your content is going to perform. Like, if there's a piece of content that has 1,000 shares in a week, you know it's performing better than the content that has 200 shares in a month. So while, of course, I would never encourage plagiarism or things like that, inspiration, I would call it. And I think that, that's a really, really, really important thing. So another aspect is team curation. We found that curation is an amazing way to get non-writers to write. And it's awesome because chances are that your colleagues and your other employees are reading up on the industry as well. A smart employee is your best employee. So if these people are already doing it, why not have them? So we have, for example, a sales team, and they're getting really into social selling, which is kind of a big trendy thing these days. And so they started reading a lot of content about social selling. What they did was they started their own curated blog about social selling. So now every day that gives me like 4 more pieces of content to share on behalf of Scoop It, because it's still related to our brand, but it's their expertise that we're bringing into the mix. So now instead of just 4 tweets or 4 posts from me, I have 4 from me, 4 from each of them, that's 8, and 4 more from this guy over there. And involving your team is the best way to or one of the best ways to kind of scale your content and increase your content volume. And since it's likely that if they're not already a writer, they're probably not going to write, curation is a really great way to get them to contribute. And then I think this is the second to last one, is your distribution. Super important as well. A lot of this can also be automated, like I explained earlier, with the social media, things like that. There are also so many other ways to distribute your content, and a lot of them actually are related to what I talked about earlier with leveraging existing communities and existing audiences. So those are very intertwined. A lot of my content distribution comes from kind of talking to the audiences that other people have built up for themselves, and kind of, not like stealing their people, but like, if there's a discussion happening about social selling, I'm going to hop in and just start talking. Like, I'm not going to pitch Scoop It. I'm not going to, just add value. And then people start to trust you and remember you. Next time, they're like, oh yeah, man, that was that tweet chat, and Allie Greer was there, and she works at Scoop It. She must know this. I mean, this happens all the time. So that's really a really important element of distribution, is leveraging the existing audiences. And then, of course, you also have the, your paid distribution, your social advertising, but that's like a whole nother topic. So if all of this works, hopefully you get increased visibility, which will in turn lead to more leads, more traffic, more clients, whatever you guys may be looking for. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything at all? Okay, yeah.
So the thing that really prompted me, so you were talking about bringing content onto your site. Is it a Scoop It widget that you're saying that we're going to use? And that is SEO friendly. So instead of creating your own blog post on WordPress, it would be a widget that's still being indexed by Google, and that we would then be able to curate other people's content, have that live on our site, and then be able to distribute that through social networks.
So that's actually exactly how Scoop It works. So with our great pitch. I actually told her to come and ask that. Yeah. Yeah, so I try not to talk like specifically about Scoop It because there are a lot of other tools, but obviously Scoop It is the one I know. How it works is with the, actually this is like the new product that we're launching next week. It already exists, but it's gonna be brand new and like a new format. So basically what you do is it's an API integration basically. So Scoop It becomes your back-end CMS essentially. So you have your WordPress site and you can still create original blog posts on WordPress through WordPress. But if you're curating on Scoop It, so you can choose to have your Scoop It topic be private so that it serves just as the back end. And then what it does is each post that you curate actually goes to your WordPress blog as a blog post. So depending on how you set it up. So it could either go as a blog post, which is what we do on our blog. Our blog is blog.scoop.it if you guys want to check it out. I really hope it works on mobile if you guys check it out now. It should. So if you can either have it as a post like we do, or some people have like you can basically configure it however you want, obviously like different price levels for different integrations, but you can also have like a Pinterest looking page with like each like different boxes. Like one of our clients is NYU, and that's we have a couple of professors who are using it that way, where they have kind of like a resources page, and each box is a little post, and it's a link to whatever content that it is that they curated, but it's also their insight is along with it. So, but the way Scoop It works is that each piece of curated content is actually a no-follow link and an indexed post in search. So it's indexed the same way a blog post. So every post on Scoop It, every piece of content that you curate on Scoop It has a unique URL. So that's how it works. So we have topic URLs and we have post URLs. So anything you share is indexed. And then as well as like what you write, your insight, that's also indexed. So you can put keywords in there, but not too many. Yeah.
As far as attribution and copyrights, like, does it go back to the old days of print? So if Professor Jones did a study and found A, B, and C, and I think B is interesting, and I lifted the idea of Professor Jones says B, and readers should know this, but here's what I really think is interesting about B. Mm-hmm. How do you approach that? Do you just do the link? Is that enough?
So yeah, so the way it works is there's actually a really, really awesome video by Matt Cutts from Google. He's like in charge of spam and stuff and search at Google. So I would definitely look up that video, but I can explain it like kind of. So the way it works is that you're not actually republishing any content. You're just linking to it. So it's pretty much the same thing as if you're writing a blog post and you have like, according to a study from blah, 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 and then you link to it with a hyperlink, it's the same thing. So it's actually linking back. Yeah. So it's linking back to yes, it links back to the original content in the title, and you can edit that as you wish, but it's a hyperlink, basically, back to the original content.
So pretty much what you're doing is you're automating what the traditional blogger would do with like their Friday finds. Mm-hmm. So like exactly. Here's my weekly, like here's all the really cool articles I saw this week. Yeah.
And that's curation. Yeah. So it's basically, but you're doing it on a consistent basis. So every single time you share one of those posts out, it goes back to your website. So those people, they just make a list of links and then you click the links and you're gone. So it's actually even more valuable.
And can you schedule out the tweets that you would use to promote all of those? Because one of the things I hate when I use Twitter, because I'm a Twitter user where I typically go through the timeline, and if I see someone tweeting 7 times in a row, I just automatically skip every next day.
I hate that too.
So can you schedule out like, okay, here's tweet for link number 1, tweet for link number 2, goes 5 hours later.
Yes.
So like I said, we actually have an integration with Buffer, so you can connect do you use Buffer? You can connect your Buffer to Scoop It and then send it just straight to your Buffer. Or we actually, with our new product, we actually built our own version of Buffer, which is super cool. So it's called the Smart Scheduler. So you can set times and make a queue, and then just put it into the queue. Or you can just individually schedule each one. Yeah, in the back.
Does your Smart Scheduler work with Google Plus?
Yes. Pages, not profiles.
And Instagram?
Not Instagram. Instagram's API is untouchable. So, did you have a question somewhere back there? Yeah, and then you. Okay, 1, 2.
My question was, do you integrate with Hootsuite?
Yes. So we do integrate with Hootsuite. You can actually have a stream like on your Hootsuite of your Scoop It content if you just want to schedule that right out. But realistically, you don't even have to. You can do it all in Scoop It. But that's obviously something that I have to say. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did you?
Well, just to follow on that, do you have the smart analytics like Buffer and Hootsuite do that
Yes.
say what are the best times to post? And
So that's all in our new analytics. So we have like when your followers are online, how your posts are performing based on time of day or based on, how location or that's all in our analytics. Yes.
So I'm really new to this, and a lot of this stuff I don't understand, but when you link to an article, that let's say your competitor wrote a great article, and he says exactly what you want to say, but he's your competitor, does it show up in a window on your site or a way that you want to give them credit, or I don't want to steal it, but I also don't want people going, like you said, going to their site, and now they're there.
Yeah. So we actually encounter this a lot because so as a marketer for Scoop It, I do content marketing about content marketing. So, and it's really, there's a lot of content marketers out there and they're all writing the stuff that I want to write. And a lot of them happen to be our competitors. So in that situation, it really depends on what you feel comfortable with, but when it comes down to it, it's only going to be a link back to their site. So if you're curating a post from, who's heard of Curata? So Curata is like an enterprise curation software. That's our competitor, even though we do more stuff than them, but whatever. Just kidding. So say we have an awesome blog post from Curata, right? And we really, really want to share it, but I'm like feeling a little iffy about it. What would happen would be I would scoop it to my Scoop It page, so my curation topic on Scoop It. When you click it, there's a box that comes up on Scoop It, and that's where you can edit the title and the photo and add your insight. And then when it's published, how it looks is it's a square like this, or if you want to customize it, you can. But it'll have the title, the image, and then whatever you wrote. And the title is what links back to the initial piece of content. So if you want, like you could change the title if you can change it to whatever angle you kind of want to take on it and say, yeah, I love Curata, but listen to me. And there's not going to be like a logo or like this is from the Curata blog, like on your page. It's a link. But again, like I probably wouldn't curate an article from Curata just because I would probably just write the same thing. But that's just on principle, I think. Anyone else? Yeah.
So do you have a personal blog that you could just show us, do a little demo for?
I actually don't have a personal blog, but I can show you an example of like a website if you want. Would that be like? Okay. Yeah. This is actually a demo account that we created, so it's not a real business. This is, I'm just going to stand because this is awkward. So this is the homepage of their website. And as you can see, they're very personal as well. And they have like all their, their stuff and on the top, they have their menu. So you can see they have their About Us, and I don't think this is actually like completely fold out, but if you have our blog and curated news, this is where the Scoop It comes into play. So you have the Palace of Fine Arts, which our boss lovingly refers to as the Temple of Knowledge, and puts it on all of our resources and actually writes that on it. So these are some posts that came from Scoop It. So as you can see, this is obviously a unique example because it's very light customization. But each of these posts, so basically how it works is this is the original article. So if you click it, it'll actually bring you to a blog post on the Acme blog, and then back to the original content. Opens in a new window, so they're still actually can come back to your site. So this is the original content, how hospitals are tackling costs in 2015. Oh my God, amazing article. And when you wanted to curate it, like this is what we wrote. So a major battle remains to be fought here, blah, blah, blah. This is my expertise. I know everything about this. And that's kind of how it works on this site. So like I said, they have it set up that they actually have the curated posts in this view, and they also have the blog view. So each of these is actually a blog post, like I showed before. Oh, maybe not. If you click on the title, it's a blog post. And it'll actually, it'll keep you. So this is what it would look like as a blog post. And then it has the source, and you can configure categories. Like from Scoop It, you can actually say like which of your WordPress categories you want it to go into. This could be as long or short as you want. These are clearly very short because it's a demo, but I can actually show you our blog. So this is that community manager post I wrote. But for example, here's a curated post right here. Looks like a blog post. And then when you click it, you can see, here's where it came from. And then this is what Guillaume wrote. So he really took it, he took it to the next step, and he wrote this whole blog post. And it got comments, it got shares, and that's kind of how we're using it. And then this is more of an example of, I guess, a company who doesn't even want to have a separate blog. So like we're a platform, so obviously our blog is not on our actual website. It's a separate, it's a WordPress site, and our platform itself is obviously not on WordPress, so it's a separate site. So for those of you who have a blog on your site, this is an example of what it could look like. There's a whole bunch of other examples too. So these are this is an example of this is actually a topic on Scoop It. So you can either choose to host it on your website, or you can just completely customize it on our platform for way less money. So we actually do that. We added this header, we added links in the header, as you can see, to our social media. And so here are some more examples of, here's one, Tribal Pond is this is a spa website that has this amazing apothecary blog. So these are all coming from Scoop It. So they can set the titles, they can set the images, and then whatever settings they have on their WordPress, the content adopts to that template. So all this black and white stuff, that's all just a part of their WordPress template. And the content that's coming from Scoop It actually changes into those rules. And then as you can see, this is what they added. This is what they wrote. And then when you click the post, you're actually brought to a blog post where they wrote that whole thing. And then here's the source at the bottom. So that's kind of another example of what it could look like. Any other questions?
Maybe I'm the only one with the question here, but I think it's one of the most one of my challenges as a social media manager is how do I prove to my employee that whatever I'm doing is generating leads, and if you have an insight how what tools I can use to measure that.
So there are a couple of different ways, obviously, to collect leads. So actually, a feature that we even have on Scoop It is if you're hosting your page on Scoop It, we have a lead gen form that you can add to your page. So this is another kind of piggybacking off of the importance of bringing people back to your website when you're sharing content. When you bring them to you, you have full control over what's in front of them, right? So if you have a page of curated content and say these people wanted to collect some information, they could have right here a form or something like that. We do that on all of our pages. We have lead gen forms on every single page ever, so we know exactly where the lead is coming from. And I think that that's also really important, for Google Analytics and things like that. You need to know exactly where it's coming from, so make sure that you're very carefully tracking each lead gen form that you have. And I mean, this is really, really in detail. We could talk about this after if you want, but I would definitely say that for lead generation, bringing people back to your own website and having control over the environment that they're in is super, super, super beneficial for lead generation. And there are a ton of tools that I could talk about for hours, but I'm getting the look, so. Thank you, Thanks, guys.